Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. This is Bold Voices 4W. My name is Khadijah Haliru, and I want to continue on our last topic because that went wild. And it's why immigrant marriages strain as children grow and what fathers need to understand. So, again, my perspective as a Nigerian immigrant, African immigrants are mainly going through this, and I can't say that it's just an African problem. But as children grow in a new country like Canada, many immigrant couples face fresh tension. And it's not just about parenting, it's about the identity, expectations, and the silent gaps between generations. So we try to talk to our kids and we try to remind them all the time, where we've come from, our experiences, but that always didn't help. Because at some point, our kids felt like we weren't saying anything without relating it to our experience. And I'll give you an example. You should be lucky that we have, ongoing electricity for you to be able to study, and you don't want to study. And when I had to study back in, high school, there were times where you had no electricity, you had to use candles. So when you speak to your child like that, and they keep hearing that over time, they just get really frustrated with it because that's not their experience. So here's what often happens. The child adapts faster. Kids learn the languages, the culture, and the social codes more quickly. And this can be quite, daunting for parents. This can make parents, especially fathers, feel disconnected or challenged when their authority is questioned or misunderstood. And I find that most mothers will jump in to save their kids at this point because then, again, like I said in the first episode of the series, that mothers will quickly adapt with the teachers, with school, with, school lunches, with shopping and making friends with other parents that they too can understand most of what the kid is doing and feeling. And so that generational gap widens when you can't be in that same space, especially for the men. So when parents value respect, obedience, and tradition, like most of our men do, it can clash with what the children are taught, when it comes to our individualism and freedom and equality that we are very good at here. So if not managed, it can create resentment on both sides. And so this is a time where families really need to talk about what they're experiencing. And if you have to bring in the expectations, I imagine you would also be understanding and kind of share the point of view in a way that the kid feels included. I know your experience is this, but, be careful or share with me what you feel so I am on the same page with you and those kind of conversations. Because really, the traditional African role is the man leads the house, and most religions the same. But here, the moms take the lead in school activities, She's there for emotional talks and then the cultural navigation of the systems, the school, understanding the school boards and all of that sometimes can make fathers really, retreat or become passive. And in that role, it feels like they're just providing only. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to eliminate as much confusion by just having to talk through these because discipline can become conflict. The styles back home may not align with Canadian norms. I've had people reach out to me and say things like child welfare is on my case because my kid keeps saying things like my dad's going to kill me or, and when a child says that, African cultural norms take those kind of words for granted. But here you cannot say that. A teacher or, a guardian at school will take that seriously. And so we've had some cases where that has been brought to me and I've had to interfere and I've had to intervene with the parents and their style of parenting and what they say. So it is something that becomes quite challenging for families who are assimilating in a new country. And from that little extreme speaking to a real extreme action we've seen from different cultures, how just trying to settle in the country can really create disharmony in homes. So disciplinary styles, we need to be very careful. And this pressure again for success, from families that just really want their kids to succeed at all costs, being first generation immigrants, you don't want them to forget that they also carry, that burden of being the first immigrant, have to succeed. They are all carrying that movement, loss of friends, disconnection from family that they knew if they're young. And it has become quite a complex set of issues that helps families settle. And I feel like we've never really had enough support for new families and the way that it affects us in settling down, especially if you're coming directly from your home country. But yeah, fathers often feel like they want the kids to succeed, and the home can become a place of unrealistic expectations instead of support. So I do think it's been important for us to just kind of reflect on this. But generally, whether you're an immigrant or not, fathers need to stay involved early. We don't want to wait until there's a problem. I say be present in small moments, especially in school activities and emotional check-ins. We let go of control, basically focus on connection. The authorities that we come from didn't really heal wounds, and parents didn't really connect with kids, but authority without relationship leads to rebellion. And so let's build trust before demanding obedience, because honestly, that is the one thing that most families, especially those that keep, traveling and keep moving around, and one person's grounded and the other is not, you could lose control. So building trust before demanding obedience is really key here. And I think it's important for people to truly adapt before they lose themselves. Adapting, involving like your parent in most things that kids do as a teacher or as a school or a community is really important, because evolving your parenting style while still holding on to those core values can translate, across cultures. So we can learn from each other how we've kind of adapted and still hold those values close without losing yourself. And I bet most of us still judge no matter how much we listen to our kids, but we just need to create a safe space for our children to express their struggles and their fears. And I think fathers really need to watch out for that and do that more often. So there's that bridge that can be built. Because if you can help your kids navigate both worlds, honor where they are, and while teaching, you can teach them where they come from, but just still honor where they are and what the roadblocks are for them, the challenges they're also facing. And I think by the time men can focus on this, and I say men, because that is the norm. In our culture, that is the norm. I have met very few men who came alone to settle down and then had their families join them. It's mainly the case that you have African families come together, or they come together with the woman settling down and the man goes back and then continues to juggle until he feels safe enough to just cut all his ties and come to Canada. So without talking too much, I hope for you as a non-immigrant, you can relate a little bit to what we have to go through. I hope for the new immigrant or the old immigrant can actually reflect on where they are in their own journey. And especially for the new immigrant, realize that there's so much as a father you can do to make sure that you are part of the story, the adaptation that is happening. Don't be a stranger in your own home and still try to be the boss, the leader, without understanding the culture. Thank you for listening. This is again Khadijah Haliru, and this is Bold Voices 4W.